bridges between will ever like, but that can never change my mind. When it's good, it's amazing. When it's bad, it's uneasy. I wouldn't have it another way. There's no other way. When it hurts like this, ever like, ever like, all the bridges between. Ever like, ever like, ever like, when it hurts like this. Ever like, ever like, ever like, ever like, when it hurts like this. We hold each other high.
Well, let's kick things off for this AMA. Hello, everybody. Let me bring that music down. And hello. And yeah, just adjusting screens and everything. Okay, we're good to go. Hello and welcome to the Microsoft 365 AMA, where you can ask us anything about Microsoft 365 and the products and services therein. My name is Christian Buckley. I am I'm an Office Apps and Services MVP and Microsoft Regional Director, and also the Microsoft Go-to-Market Director at AvePoint. And we are live streaming across YouTube, Facebook. If you have a question that you would like us to tackle, please comment, and we'll attempt to address it in real time. And we're monitoring both locations. But other questions that we're going to be going through here have been gathered from various community pages, mostly from Facebook communities, which are very active. And with that, let me introduce the rest of our panel for this AMA. And we might have a couple other people joining in. I'm not sure they accepted. They should be here, Neil and Sherry, but I believe they're going to be here. But with that, we've got Mike Nelson, a solution architect with Pure Storage and a cloud and data center management MVP based in Appleton, Wisconsin. We have Hal Hostetler, a senior field engineer with Roland Shore and Tower in Tucson, Arizona, and an Office Apps and Services MVP. Eric Riz, a principal consultant at Division IT and Office Apps and Services MVP based out of Toronto, Canada, our Canadian friend. Canada, I think, is the new way of pronouncing that. And then, of course, Sharon Weaver, founder and CEO of Smarter Consulting, and another Microsoft Regional Director based in Lenexa, Kansas. Hello, everybody.
Hey.
Hello.
Welcome back.
I know, it's good to be back and doing this again. For those that have been, that aren't sure about this, we were doing this on a weekly basis, and work and life just didn't allow that to happen anymore. We did it for a year, weekly.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
How many episodes?
61 episodes.
61.
Yeah, 61
Do you
episodes.
get paid per episode?
No, we do not, but thanks for asking. But I will double that salary for this show.
Time to renegotiate your contract, Mike.
Someone failed at that negotiation, that's sure. Yeah.
Not even swag. Nothing.
Well, a lot going on.
By contract, Mikey, and you can pick it up from there.
So one of the things I want to point out, so we have Microsoft Inspire that's going on right now, like keynote and stuff. In fact, I've got Satya on the screen kind of behind me over here. So those that are interested in sales and marketing, the partner alliance type stuff that's going on with Inspire this week, you can check that out. Of course, you can check out the recordings of that because you want to watch this live, obviously.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
He's going to be talking about, the Windows 365 announcement, which is coming out. He's probably talking about it right now, but
probably.
That's not. Yep. So.
Well, very cool. And before we get underway, we do like to share the disclaimer here that, again, we will do our best to answer the questions that you throw at us. We are experts, and I like to bring it back for this so I can do the air quotes, experts in a number of things. Of course, we don't know everything. That's why I was hoping that Neil will be here because he knows everything.
Yeah. I want a meme. I want a meme of Christian going, experts.
So we have that going on.
They are out there, Mike. You just keep searching.
And there's Neil!
Hey!
So his ears must have been kind of tickled or something that he heard us talking about him, and then he joins us. Hey, Neil.
Hey,
We're just saying that
Hi.
that you know everything. So if there's any questions that we're stumped on,
hey, I've looked
Oh, now we
All
lost.
10% there on these ones.
and so just for introduction, there, Mike Nelson. Oh, sorry, that's not Mike. I'm reading down the list here. Where did I have? What happened to Neil? There he is. Microsoft Senior.
Buckley, it is his first day. We apologize on his behalf.
Microsoft Senior Program Manager, all the way from Texas, Dr. Neil Hodgkinson, who, as he says, he shows up only to be referred to as Doctor.
Doctor. And Doctor.
All right.
I think the doctor's frozen because he hasn't cracked a smile in a few minutes there.
I think so as well. So he may be back. But before we jump into the Q&A, as we do, again, feel free to post your questions and we'll try to address live. But we always kick things off with, and I now move over to the screen here, our Message Center updates that Mike has meticulously gone through. And we are going to be enlightened now about what's new in the Microsoft Message Center. So, Mike, with that, over to you.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. This is a section where I talk about what's in the Message Center. It's been a while, so there's a lot to talk about, but I'm not going to hit all of them because there's just way too many. We're talking about since June 7th, I believe, was our last show. And you know how Microsoft rolls. They got just a boatload of changes that they dropped in there. So I just picked out a few that I'd like to highlight. The first one is coming from the Department of, we thought it was a good idea. And excuse me, that's a Teams update. So they had this idea that you'd be able to join a meeting using something called a digital meeting ID. They got a bunch of feedback on that, and it turns out it wasn't such a good idea. What it basically was is it assigned every person or every attendee that was allowed to attend the meeting a customized digital ID that they could click on and it would enter them into the meeting. It was assigned to them it specifically for that attendee. Now, this is really nothing new, right? But the problem came in when they would have multiples, and I guess the coding and things like that just didn't work out that well in terms of it wouldn't allow other people with the same ID to come in, which, and that could cause problems with someone who, has multiple devices, things like that. So they'd have to create a new user, a new attendee, and so on and so forth. So it really didn't work out that well. So right now they are not moving forward with that, and they will be evaluating this feature and get back to us later.
I still have to say, we've talked about this in the past, but I actually like that Microsoft, they'll roll something out and they then get that feedback. There's that whole argument of whether they should have gotten the feedback before they do something. However, it sounded like a good idea at the time, hence the department name. But the fact that they are quick to go in, look at the feedback, and pull back on something rather than going all in, I think it's a good thing. Yeah.
Yep. I think they need to widen their testing base a little bit before they do things. But again, I think, and this is my opinion, they implement so many features and so much functionality into M365 that it pretty much is just kind of like a steamroller. It just keeps on going and going and going, and it keeps on pounding out new features, and people just can't keep up with them. So I think they're really focused on speed a little bit too much, but that's just me. All right, moving on. This is actually from a really kind of cool department, the department that is so 80s. So now you can edit your workbooks with ActiveX. ActiveX. Wasn't that like 80s? Wasn't that like the early 90s with, Internet Explorer was big thing, ActiveX? Well, now for whatever reason, they decided to delight, and this is the verbatim here, delighting our customers with faster, smoother, and frictionless experiences in Excel for the web as an uncompromised goal across the Excel team. With this in mind, we've recently added support to open and edit workbooks with ActiveX, form controls, and other legacy art objects in Excel Web. I'm not really sure where they're going with this. I mean, they call it out as legacy. So they're like, maybe, hey, we forgot to do this a long time ago. And now it's kind of bubbling up, or, they gave an intern a job and, they kind of cranked it out just as like a little side thing they could do. I'm not really sure.
So answer me this. Do my old Nintendo 64 cartridges now work with Windows 11? Is that a thing?
I think my Activision ones will.
Yeah, those gold laser discs, they're relevant again?
Exactly.
You need a special dongle adapter, Christian.
Oh, yeah. For a lot of things. That's applicable to a lot of problems.
All right. So
there goes our G rating.
All right. From one of my favorite departments comes from the department of Play That Funky Music. We are now getting a music mode for Teams.
Yeah.
Hey.
I saw that.
Yeah, the new feature release will be used to transmit high fidelity music. You'll be able to conduct online music lessons, transmit music performances, and other non-speech content. I so see people using this just for music on hold, but there's so much more you can do with it. So there's not a lot of restrictions around it because it's all based on bandwidth, right? That's the big thing. But what's really kind of interesting is that it gives a whole bunch of things that echo cancellation, noise suppression, gain control, all that other kind of stuff. When you're transmitting, like if you use OBS, you have that ability. Well, they're starting to incorporate that in Teams, which I think is really cool.
Does it have the dongle option for my Zune or?
Yeah. You just plug it right in there, Christian.
Okay.
Yeah. And speaking
Mike,
of Christian,
any details here on that? I'm particularly interested. Is this going to be another situation where it's just a matter of time before they shut me down, like Instagram, when I play music and others can hear it, and there's a copyright issue, and it takes 10 seconds before you're done?
They got to have a DRM thing, right? They got to have something that's going to, look for the licenses. But I'll bet any money, because I mean, even folks we were just on a call with Microsoft before this meeting earlier today, and they actually played a copyrighted piece of music. And I was kind of surprised that they played it to the 400 and some attendees that were on that call. So, I mean, everybody's looking out for that now, and people have to be careful with what they do. And I think that, even Microsoft makes that mistake.
Yep.
All right. Speaking of Christian, that's what I was trying to get to. The Department of it's all about making Christian's life easier. Teams
is a huge department. That's a huge, well-funded.
Yes, well-funded. Real-time messaging protocol, RTMP, streaming support is coming for custom endpoints in Teams. What does that mean? That means that you will be able to stream directly to YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook directly from Teams. Yep. And you will no longer need an intermediary to handle that for you.
Yep.
So that is actually coming. And the only concern I have here is because some folks, when I looked this up, some folks were concerned about bandwidth, right? And I can understand
That's
that.
a valid concern. Yep.
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely.
Because I don't know how refined or how tuned Microsoft is going to do this when they introduce it, where you have other third parties that have really had a lot of time to figure that out. And I'm cautious about that. So.
Yeah, I know that there's been a lot of discussion. People like I use Streamlabs OBS. So OBS, really popular open source broadcast software that allows you to pull in the various feeds. And I'm not using Teams NDI for this because I'm using one machine to be both the organizer, the producer of this event, as well as a participant. And so that's why I show up in the little box up in the top, just over blocking half of Neil's face. but it's all right. You just parted your hair, Neil. Yeah. But so to cut out the middleman and be able to do all of that natively, like I'm very excited to see. Performance is a major issue. That's what we don't need more of, is more features jammed into Teams and making it more bloated than it already feels. It's just a massive resource hog. But then again, running separately, running OBS, that eats up a lot of the bandwidth and things as well. So that'll be interesting to look at. Does it replace the need for OBS? It's like, no, for people that are looking to do more advanced builds and flies and animations and other things, then certainly those folks will continue using that. Why would, this is the number one question I've seen, people say, well, why would I want to, if I've got a meeting, why would I want to live stream that? And here's a great example. There's plenty of things that we're doing where we want to have an internal meeting where we might, like a company might, like my company might decide, hey, support personnel want to walk through problem resolution of a common issue that they're seeing with customers, and do that as a live stream and then capture and record it and post it. Can you just post it as a recording? Yes. But do you want to have live with live interaction? Do you want to have that as an option?
Well,
sure.
You can do a live stream to a restricted audience. It doesn't mean live stream doesn't mean, to the entire world. So yeah. And speaking of bandwidth, Microsoft does have a department that's called We Think Bandwidth is Cheap. And the reason why I say that is because in Teams, they're actually going to start allowing paging in the large gallery view. And they will allow you to view up to 98 video streams. Now, that's a 9 and an 8, okay? Currently, they support up to 49 videos, but 98. Now, if anybody really wants to view 98 video streams of people, sitting in front of their webcam while they're at a team meeting, whatever, turns you crank. But at the same time, you're chewing up a lot of bandwidth. And, if you add presentations to that and video and audio and everything else, it gets a little rough.
Yeah.
Some of us can't afford it, like Dr. Neil. Dr. Neil has a very large budget for his bandwidth, so he can afford things like that.
Mike, when you say paging, do you mean like, paging Dr. Sutton? Paging Dr. Sutton? Or I rarely get a chance to use that reference, so I want to see if anybody picked up on it.
Oh, Briz, I love it. So keeping up with the Joneses, team meetings is getting auto recording, which every other thing has had for a while. They're finally getting around to it. Okay, cool. It allows you to automatically set that a meeting's going to be recorded.
I'm a huge advocate for that. Make it a manual process to not record, because those meetings, those are an important information asset for an organization.
Yeah.
And I would automatically, with that, I would turn on transcription as well, so that you make it. You can turn it off, but you make that a manual, intentional process. Turn off recording, turn off transcription.
Right. So
we do have, for those that have clients who are not in love with or have various reasons for not having their sessions recorded, it is a pain. So whatever you do, Microsoft, I know you're listening, Doctor, please make sure that this process is easy, seamless, and very obvious, because part of the issue of recording is that the person who created the meeting has to be the one who hits the record button, or somebody within that organization. So
the auto record, but the auto record function has to be set in the meeting itself when the meeting is created. So it has to be a switch that's turned on when the meeting's created, and that there's no way, to set it up, kind of like a template type deal, which it was, but it's per meeting.
Does the admin still have the ability to make that the default setting, so that anytime I open up a new meeting, it's on, and then I have to turn it off? Got it.
Right.
Yep.
Right. What I was thinking about was
that. Go to it.
Who said that? What I was thinking was for a particular meeting series, it could be an interesting situation, because you've got for us some clients who based on the series, some individuals may attend, others may not. And depending on who's there, you may not be able to record it just based on the obligations of the user.
Just uninvite those people, Eric. What's the problem?
Yeah, and they're the ones who have to be there.
Yeah.
They need their feedback.
Yeah, Eric, that's where I was going. I know the business group I work in at Microsoft, we have a strong policy that we do not record calls that are customer or partner facing. There's a variety of reasons for that. Compliance is one. However, if the partner or the customer sets the call up, then they can record it because it becomes their IP at that point. So there's various policies like that. So I think having it default to always on, and you have to remember to turn it off, is kind of a challenge. Unless you get kind of reminders, hey, these people are outside your organization, blah, 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 you know, the usual kind of compliancy things you get pop up in Outlook. So it's a difficult, there's no one size fits all, basically, I think, in that scenario.
Okay. So from the Department of Clarity doesn't necessarily mean simple. And we're moving away from Teams and to my most favorite subject, SharePoint. Lie. So updated from SharePoint, updates for Microsoft Teams connected team sites. So what's happening is when you create a team in Microsoft Teams, a SharePoint team site will be automatically get created in tandem. And you are also able to connect any existing SharePoint team site to a new team in Microsoft Teams. These are called Microsoft Teams connected team sites. They're saying for private channels in Microsoft Teams, a SharePoint team site automatically gets created and is known as a channel site. So these Teams connected team sites and channel sites are managed differently than your typical SharePoint team site. So they actually said, excuse me, in the top of the announcement, they said, we have updated the content below for additional clarity. No, that is clear as mud. Okay. So if you read the entire message that came across, it's very confusing. So I'll just leave that out there for the show.
It is very simple, Mike. So there's a Microsoft Teams plural site and a Microsoft Teams site.
And then there's a Microsoft Teams connected Teams site, and there's a Microsoft Teams channel site.
That's right.
Whatever.
Can't we just call it Microsoft Teams for Business? I think that would really simplify the whole thing for everybody.
Yeah,
Microsoft Teams for Business Pro and Pro Plus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So,
Mike,
go ahead,
wasn't there
Sharon.
something in that update that said something about the permissions being switched over to Teams administrators or something like that?
Yes. Yeah, it's being switched over to Teams administrators. It actually says it's making small updates to the viewing and management experience of Teams connected team sites and channel sites to simplify the end user experience. But they're actually making it so you have to go in and site classification and site permissions and go in and change things there, all kinds of crazy stuff. Yeah, it's not easy.
It just makes me think of like George Orwell. I just listened to, I did a 1984 book, audio book on my trip back from Minnesota last week. And so I keep hearing that, just like, just to add to it at the end of that statement, how complex it is that you talk about, and then just say, for simplicity. It's like I used to always joke, like, no matter how horrible it sounds, to be like, but we'll do it for the children. And,
yeah, exactly, for the children. It's all for the children.
It's all for the
Don't
children.
forget world peace, Christian.
And world peace. I never forget world peace, Eric. You know I'd never forget that.
All right. So one last department we got to hit up today is when is a web app not a web app ×2. And what I mean by that is they actually are now allowing for the installation of a web version of both OneDrive and Microsoft Lists as a progressive web app, a PWA. And I don't know if you know what that means. That means basically if you've used any of the apps from Microsoft where you download this bunch of code, and when you download the bunch of code, it basically opens up in a kiosk web browser. It doesn't really look like a web browser, but it actually is a web browser. And it's really kind of weird to me because I'm like, okay, you can open up OneDrive and Microsoft Lifts in a browser. So why do you have to have this PWA? Why do you have to have this progressive web app? It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but they're saying you can do this in Microsoft Edge, Google Chrome, Firefox, or other browsers that support PWAs, with the exception of Safari. Mac users, sorry. After you install the web version of OneDrive or Microsoft Lists as a PWA, you can launch it from your desktop and it'll work with the same way it does in your web browser. So why not just use the web browser? Why do you need this PWA? I'm not getting this. Anybody else get this? I'm not getting it.
I just like how passionate you are about it. That's the best part. The hands start to go, and
somebody's got to, somebody's got to be the person. I've got to be that guy, Riz. I've got to be that person that stands up and just goes, "What? What?"
I just don't understand why it matters what the political affiliation of your web apps are.
Yeah. Nice segue there, Christian. Nice.
And with that, and once again, there
I have one
is.
more.
Oh, what you said that was your last one? Okay,
I have
okay.
Last one plus
This is
a
the
little
last
announcement.
The last one.
Yeah. So the last thing I wanted to add here is, I don't know if anybody's noticed, but if you have the ability to go in your M365 admin centers and take a look at the purchase services. I don't know if you've ever gone out there and just took a look at the different services that you can buy. They've changed the UI now. It used to just list them as little cards, kind of like Kanban cards, but now they're you got to pick on a category and all that other kind of stuff. I think it's harder to use than easier. But the thing is that there's a bunch of stuff out there now that they've added for free. And one of the free things that I enabled was you can actually get M365 audio conferencing adoption promotion. It's called the M365 audio conferencing adoption promo. And what it does is it gives dial-in numbers to join meetings and dial out to bring participants into a meeting. It's a free promotion thing. And it's kind of cool because once I checked it and enabled it, now when I go into Teams, it gives me all of these phone numbers and stuff that people can use to connect to my meetings. And there's a bunch of other ones out there, and it really seems to be focused. They're allowing free trials for communication credits and things like that. So I think they're really trying to push that maybe their whole the phone system, the PBX and the cloud thing isn't really kind of generating enough revenue. And they want to really push this. So if you want to try out some really cool stuff with some meetings and you want the ability to have the dial in and dial out and all that kind of fun stuff, go out there and sign up for the free promo. It's not a free trial, it's a promo. Yeah. So and they have a couple of free trials of other things in other basically free services that are just free no matter what. So check them out.
On that, it's it's not that they're not making money on it. It's that they're really doubling down on some of those pieces and really pushing that. In fact, again, you've got Microsoft Inspire that's happening this week, and part of that is their fiscal year, which begins on July 1st. They're starting to lay out all of their FY22 plans, and a major metric for Microsoft sellers is around the meetings and the telephony portion of that, and the hardware and meetings and that piece of it, because Microsoft is seeing a lot of competition in that area, and so they're shoring up their pricing and their plans and making it more enticing for people to go and try and use those capabilities. So, so that's a major part of the push for FY22. So, yeah, check it out. Well, thank you, Mike, for that. And once again, for everybody that's watching as we run through the Message Center updates, these are the only Message Center updates that you need to think about. There's nothing else. There's nothing else of importance, because if there was, Mike would have included it. Because he did not include it, therefore, they are irrelevant to your life. So that's official from Mike Nelson. Contact information to be shared.
Okay, move along.
Should I use the disclaimer again? Okay, the disclaimer's up once again for that previous statement. All right, back into it. Okay, there we go. All right, let's jump in with some questions here. we've got a few, and we've got wow, we have an hour to go through this. And so once again, if you're watching on the live streams on Facebook or YouTube, and you have a question you'd like us to tackle, that feel free to comment, and we'll attempt to address those questions. But with that, are there any questions that you'd like to kick off with, or we just start at number one and run through? Anybody have from the list that we have that was shared? No. All right, we'll just jump right in and see what happens.
And just so everyone knows in the audience, the main reason for that is because Christian just got us the questions like
this morning,
like an hour ago.
Yeah. Well, I want the responses to be natural, the surprise, the shock on your face to be legitimate, not staged. So, with that, let's kick off with question number one. So, all of these questions.
Didn't it say that you just kind of forgot? Isn't that what
Or,
the
yeah.
email said?
Oh,
Did
no,
you guys
yeah.
get that?
I
Where he said he kind of forgot?
I know.
Yeah, okay. I just
know.
wanted to clarify that.
It's been a month since we did the last show, and yeah, I had all that time to add questions in, and yet I forgot until the last minute. It happens.
So after 61 shows, you forgot how this works? Is that what you're saying? Just a
Kind
few
of.
weeks and
Kind of. Yeah. I forgot to put reminders in my calendar. So that's my own excuse for myself, is that I live and breathe by my calendar, and I just neglected to put the reminders in. So I have corrected that, or will correct it shortly. All right. So with that, so again, these questions that come from predominantly from various Facebook groups, the community sites that are out there, as well as from unanswered questions out on the Microsoft Tech community. Question number one comes from Rick. It says, so I have a request form with maybe 3 or 4 different sections, patching, writing to individual SharePoint lists, all connected on a number or record ID. What is the best way to have 4 different forms on one screen without over cluttering? So some aspects of the forms are conditional based on responses, etc. So what's the best way to have 4 different forms on one screen?
Well, in the modern, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's a new feature on Modern Pages where you can have collapsible sections. So one of the options would be in the new Modern Page to simply create a form in each section and then have it collapsed by default. And it would look very nice.
And I missed that in the updates. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Also, Power App would probably be a good choice. You could do a link to every single form with a little button. So on the Modern Pages, you can do a button that takes you directly to a URL. That'd be an easy way. I mean, it's kind of a UI question more than anything.
Yeah. If you're not on the Modern, I mean, you can also do that hypertext.
If you're not on the Modern, you should be on the Modern, and don't talk to me. Because my only answer to you right now would be like, let me talk to you about how I can modernize that for you.
Okay. Yeah, Mike, you're on mute.
No, I was saying talk to the hand.
Oh, talk to the.
He's saying don't talk to me, talk to the hand.
All right, question number 2 from Robin, and this comes from Microsoft Teams for Education community. I'm switching to digital planning and using OneNote as my app. You can't go wrong there using OneNote as that app. On many OneNote pre-made planners, I see where it says to open in OneNote 2016 before using on your iPad. Does anyone know why? What is the impact? I also want to create some new template pages to add to the planner I buy. Should those also be made in OneNote 2016 before opening on my iPad or Mac? So what's the purpose? I don't know if there's anything that's unique to the iOS, Mac OS.
Yeah, so it depends on what they're talking about. I can tell you there's multiple. I've had to deal with this over the last couple of years. There's multiple versions of OneNote. There is OneNote that's built into Windows. There's the OneNote browser app, and then there's the OneNote with the version numbers. And the OneNotes that have the version numbers have a lot more features and functionality. And I believe some of the templating options are not as easy or don't really work as well in the browser app as they do in the versioned app.
Why would you want to, though, open it first within the native app before using it on your iPad?
It does work better if you open the app first. It's something weird about OneNote. Like, I actually have OneNote, the client app, installed on my computer. It's one of the few client apps I still use because I get a lot more functionality out of it. But if I have the app opened first and I've already synced to that OneNote notebook in the app, I get it. It works better, and it works in a way that it just doesn't do in the same in the browser app.
So is
I
it
get
just
more.
so yeah, if you just open up straight in the browser, open up on the device, is it just that it's not done that full sync?
Well, yeah, and if you think of it this way, so OneNote is a binder, right? So, and it's got a bunch of individual binders. So you're going to that individual binder and you're working that individual binder. But in the client app, you can actually have the collection of like your most frequently used binders. So it's a little bit easier to navigate. Some of the features and functionality are better. You still get the ribbon. So there's things in the client app that you just don't get quite so much in the browser. If you're just opening it and typing, the browser is perfectly fine.
Right.
But if you want some of that kind of more advanced control over it, I find that the client app is a lot better. And opening ahead of time just makes everything seem to sync and work better.
Right.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I use the desktop almost exclusively, and the biggest, I mean, and this is just a pet peeve that I just cannot let go of, is that every time you put a URL or a link, a hyperlink inside of OneNote, it automatically creates it as a hyperlink, and you cannot turn it off. It's always a hyperlink. You cannot turn it off. It just, I mean, and the user voice votes on that is like coming up on like literally the hundreds, and they're still not changing that. So, yeah, they listen sometimes, Christian.
So what do you mean it remains as a hyper? So you add in a URL? And
If
what?
you copy and paste or link, or even do a web clip or something like that, it puts a URL into OneNote, and you can't like do remove hyperlink. So you can't copy. If you ever want to copy and paste it, you can't. I mean, you have to go, you always have that extra white space before, because it turns into a hand. It wants to open that link, and you don't want it to. So just like in Excel or Word, you right click and say remove hyperlink, right?
Yeah.
You can't do that in OneNote. It's always a hyperlink.
Yeah, that is kind of a pain. The one last thing I was going to say that so I use the desktop version of OneNote, and one of the reasons is because I have between the three main tenants that I go between and the multiple devices that I use, I can sync up and have from my desktop version. I'll go and open up and I can actually see from one pane, so one application, those OneNotes that are coming from my work, my community stuff, my personal stuff, like from three different tenants all in one place, and sync up with those things. And there's still some AD stuff that's a bit quirky from time to time with syncing of folders and signing out of one profile and in to make sure the sync is there. But once you have that link in place with all of those, having everything in one place, one application to work from. So I live and breathe inside of OneNote. So these questions are in OneNote in front of me. So excellent. All right. Let's see. Again, anybody watching on the live stream or listening in, feel free to ask questions, and we'll get to them as soon as we can. With that, question number 3 from Harry. Hello, everyone. I'm in a hybrid environment. Do all the user accounts have to be in the local AD?
Do all the user accounts have to be in the local AD? It depends. I mean, this is really a vague question again. He says that he's in a hybrid environment. I don't know what that means. It could mean a couple different things. But I mean, in a normal situation, you can have local accounts and AD together if you're using LDAP. If you're just restricted to AD only, then no. And what do you need what would these accounts be used for? I mean, if it's an M365 service, then yeah, you can invite guests to use services. We need more information.
And as I said, these questions, folks, are raw from the interwebs, so we don't have the ability to do any follow-up there. So if anybody that posted these questions happens to be listening in and has additional detail, we're happy to dig in a little bit deeper on something like this.
Yep.
All right, question number 4 may be similar. Valeria says, does anyone know how to solve the problem of we almost ready on my sites?
Don't use my sites.
Problem solved.
Maybe upgrade to the most current version of SharePoint or get to SharePoint Online where my sites are no longer there.
What, do you know what that issue is? Is there like an error message? Is there something?
Well, that's when they're
referred to?
building your site. They have a little, I don't know
Yeah.
if you remember, they used to have a little gears or whatever, or they had, I don't remember, but it was when it was building the site.
Yeah, please wait while we get your site ready,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. Now there was a while ago, there was a scenario where that message was perpetual, and I'm trying to remember what it was. It was to do with a process or a timer job or something that would be stalled or broken. But that was a long time ago for SharePoint on-prem. We're talking like 2013 days, the latest probably. There was a resolution for it, but I forgot what it was. But if you're running a modern version of SharePoint on-prem, modern as it can be, and you're patched up to date, you shouldn't have any issues with that scenario. If it's just the fact that thing pops up that you're concerned about, then I'm sorry, you can't get away from that, unless you programmatically create the OneDrive sites or my sites for people.
Yeah, when were my sites
Around
retired?
It depends on what you're going to call it. Sorry, Sharon, go ahead.
No, I was just thinking when they were retired, probably
2013?
2013 to 2016, because they replaced it with all the Delve stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the only other thing I could think is you could delete the my site. If it's just one offending my site, you could delete that my site and let it reprovision and see if it fixes itself. Occasionally, if we had like one corrupted my sites because something didn't provision correctly, we'd just delete it and let it recreate itself and try again. But yeah, there was an open issue quite a while ago. I just don't remember how we fixed it.
We'll just stop using my sites was the initial advice that was given. Okay.
Upgrade.
All right. Well, let's jump to question number 5. Dev asks, hoping that someone will have something similar to solve. We have a regular company-wide meeting or presentation that we're hoping to use Teams for because some bright spark started the thing on Facebook Live, and we've been fighting to bring it back to Teams for a year and a half. Yep, that happens. If one person schedules this meeting, then they are the presenter or arranger for the meeting, and only they can do breakout rooms and so on. But in real life, these presentations are made by different staff members each time. It's a regular slot in the week, open to all, but with different presenters. My question is, how do we make it scheduled and regular without one person being tied to being the meeting arranger? That's a great question.
That is an excellent question.
Yeah, the workaround that the only way that I've seen, and maybe somebody has a better technical answer for this, but is that for recurring meetings, it's held on everyone in the organization's schedule as a placeholder meeting. And as we get colder to that individual, then an invite specifically for that event is sent out. That's how we resolve that. So everyone has it on their calendar, but it's clearly marked in parentheses placeholder so that it's blocked out in your calendars, and then there's just another invite coming out. And it's just part of our culture to then know to look for the actual invite for that one meeting.
That's what our company does as well, because it just it also saves a lot of time. Especially when you send out the placeholder without, reply requests, and everyone gets it. And then when you actually send it out with the meeting, you get the reply requests, whether or not they're going to attend. And it helps from an administration standpoint. So,
any other technical guidance on that, or anything else anybody's used?
No, we've run into this quite a bit, and ultimately, yeah, whoever sets up the meeting is the one that has to do a lot of the pieces of it. You can promote people to presenter during the meeting. So I mean, if you know in advance like who's going to be presenting, you could go in there and set it up and promote them and
Right.
things like that. But I mean, it gets really messy really fast. So I agree. Like if it's going to be different people every time, I would probably agree with that solution is just put a placeholder on there. You can schedule an Outlook meeting without scheduling a Teams meeting. I think sometimes people forget that. They think it's all one and the same, but you could schedule an Outlook meeting that has that placeholder with the intent that whoever's going to be presenting at that meeting then creates a Teams meeting that they send out to whoever's invited at whatever is convenient for them prior to the meeting.
Well, this kind of goes back to the old issue that is around if someone creates an Outlook meeting, a recurring Outlook meeting, and that person is no longer, if they leave the company or, they're on vacation or whatever, they have to turn over the reins for that single meeting to someone else, or else the other folks can't change the meeting, alter it, add people, do anything like that. It's the same premise with setting up a Teams meeting as well. You still have to have that person who created it or someone who has delegate rights, right? Does that work in Teams? Do they have delegate rights for Teams?
That's a great question, specifically around doing the rooms, the breakout rooms. Can you, if I've gone and set it all up, does the next can you delegate that off? Yeah, you basically break
not
it.
That I have found yet.
Yeah.
No, I have looked and asked and watched, and the answer that I know is that no, you cannot. It's whoever is the actual creator of the meeting is the only person that can manage the breakout rooms.
So if you've gone in advance and set that up, and then something happens, or like I know it's never happened to anybody. Power goes out, and you're lost. It's just done.
We've been in that situation, and essentially what we had to do is the other person had to create the meeting and then send out a new link.
Yep.
So no, you cannot, as far as I know, up till now, you cannot make changes to that. But I will tell you, Mike, this is a great time to bring up the conversation of this is such a good reason why you should be using group calendars and SharePoint calendars and not personal calendars for stuff like that. So if you have maybe a corporate meeting or a meeting that's dedicated for a certain department, if you're not using group calendars for Office 365 groups, or you're not using SharePoint calendars, those are places where you can put things like meetings on a calendar that is not, it's not limited to one individual. It's for anybody who's part of the group or anybody that's part of the SharePoint site can then have access to that, and it lives outside of an individual. And that's a really good reason to set up a team, a group, or a SharePoint calendar and put those types of activities on that calendar, and then allow people to subscribe to that calendar so they can see it on their own calendars, as opposed to having an individual put that on their calendar and sharing it out.
We actually have a calendaring question coming up. Another one. So yeah, it's actually, and looking back over the 61 previous episodes that we've done, almost every month there was something about, or every week I should say, was something around calendars. It's a popular question.
I talk about calendars a lot lately. I'm doing a presentation on time management twice in the next 30 days.
Wow. Well, so that we'll get to that. That one is the next question after this one, number 6. Shreya says, "Hello everyone. We need suggestions on Power App's mobile app. The code in my app start does not get executed if the mobile app is not closed each time I use it. For example, each time I get new emails to approve something, and when I open the app for the first time, it takes me to that particular screen. But the next time, if I want to approve another request, so the app is still open, see a second request, the app still shows the previous state or the last approved screen. This happens when I don't exit the app completely. How do I manage app start on mobile apps?"
No clue on that. Nope.
Yeah. The only thing I know about approvals is we have found in general for the clients that I have that use Power Apps and use approval processes across the board, that we're finding a lot better usage if they add the approval app in Teams that the approval app in Teams crosses approval processes for everything, Power Apps, Power Automate, everything, and you can add it into your Teams. When you do that, you can see all your approvals in one place. So I don't know about the starting and stopping of the Power Apps in the mobile app, but I can tell you that if you add the approval apps in Teams, so you just go to Teams, go to the ... type approvals, pin it to your bar, you will see approvals anywhere you are requested to do an approval across all apps, anywhere in the M365 environment. And that's been really nice for a lot of our clients.
Okay. Yeah, I know that I have no experience with mobile app development, but I know that in past lives, there's usually a command that basically like to force close after the completion of that workflow state, or that there's some kind of like a refresh that's done of the app even in the background. But I don't know, we'd have to ask a mobile dev person. So, but I like that solution of moving stuff to Teams. We're all moving to Teams. It's all moving in that direction anyway, so why fight it, people? Yeah. Okay, question number 7 from Ariel. If I want new employees to automatically have certain shared calendars as soon as their user is provisioned without manual intervention, how do I do that? And what calendar type do I need? So shared personal calendar, Teams calendar, SharePoint calendar, etc.
I just did this. I actually just proved out this entire use case a couple of weeks ago to make sure that it was doing what it was supposed to be doing. So if you...
Sharon, let me just point out that if you didn't blog it, it didn't happen.
I know. I blog, but I'm going to tell you, my time is getting more and more limited. But I do. It's a good one to blog. So the best way to handle this is you can either do dynamic groups or you can do manual groups. But if you want no intervention at all, you can use a dynamic Active Directory group, push that to an M365 group, and then as people are dynamically added, they will also be added to certain M365 groups. If you have calendars enabled on that group, when people are added to that group, they will automatically be registered and have access to the group calendar. The only limitation is anything prior to them starting will not be added to their calendar. It's only things going forward, but they will immediately be subscribed to the calendar. Anything that's in there, they will be able to see it. They'll have access to the shared calendar. And then any new events that are added to that calendar after they start will also be sent to them to add to their own personal calendars.
You get all that?
I'm taking copious notes here. Yeah. I set a note down here. Sharon will blog about this. It's in the notes, Sharon. I'm just reading it. I just typed it, but it's in the notes.
It's a great blog. I actually worked on one of the gals that works with me. Her and I did some separate research and we proved it out, and it absolutely works. And so, yeah, I think that would make a great blog to push out.
Very cool. All right, let's jump to number 8. Tia says, I want to send email to a group of users using Power Automate workflow. This is a custom group created specifically for the subsite of a website. When I try to access the group list for emails in the flow, it gives only groups that are defined at the website level or Azure AD. How can we access groups defined at the subsite level for the workflow? Any suggestions or solutions is appreciated.
I'm awful. Don't use subsites.
Always a simple solution.
Yeah.
You really shouldn't be using subsites anyways.
Yeah. Anything else to add on that? So there's not so much a how to do it, but what should you not do?
Re-architect to use the best practice, which is not subsites.
Yeah.
That sounds good. Move along.
All right. Question number 9 from Emer. So this is an Azure question. I'm creating application insight alerts. How do I make the notification configurable like email recipient and email body?
So there's a bunch of different solutions for this question. By definition, inside of application insights, you cannot alter the email recipients. It's automatically set to the administrators of the subscription. Okay. By definition, if you inside of the application insights blade, as they call it in Azure, if you're inside of that blade and you set the alert there, then you have no path to do what you want to do. However, there are a couple different alternatives that you can do to that. Everything that you set inside of application insights from an alerting perspective is actually done inside of Monitor and Azure Monitor and Azure Log Analytics as the back end, okay? And you can recreate those alerts for application insights in one of those, either Monitor or Log Analytics, and there you can define anyone to send those emails to, and you can predefine the body of the alert as well, or modify the body of the email as well. You just can't do it inside of the native application insights. I actually found a Power Automate function, a flow that will automatically take the alert from application insights and then bring it through a flow to send it to whoever you want to send it to, and change the email subject and content however you want. So instead of having to go into Monitor and recreate that alert, which is already defined in Application Insights, or go into Log Analytics and do the same thing, you can just go into Power Automate, attach that flow to that alert, and add the recipients and change the email and all that kind of stuff right inside of there.
It's just that easy, folks.
Yeah, I mean, you have a couple it really is, because you have a couple alternatives that if you can't do it in one place, you can do it in 3 other places. But I do want to stress that all of the alerting that comes out of Azure comes from Log Analytics. And I mean, literally anything that you can do from alerting inside of a blade for a particular feature, you should be able to go to Log Analytics and create the same alert, but you're just doing it a different way. You're doing it via query into what they call the Graph API, rather than doing it natively inside of the blade itself. I will say that there's probably a dozen other ways to do this. You could use things like Azure Functions. You can use Event Grid. You can use all these other functionalities that's in Azure to do all this. But to keep it simple, what I would do is if you have never worked with Power Automate, or you want to give it a try, or you have, I would go out and do that. That's the easiest. Otherwise, get into Monitor, recreate the alert, and send it to whoever you want.
Now, this is not my world, but is Monitor provide kind of a dashboard view of all the notifications that you've set up?
Yeah, so Monitor does that. Log Analytics is the back end that generates the queries. That actually, you can go in there and you can create what they call Cusco language queries against everything that happens in Azure, against every log, everything that is trapped from an event. And Monitor is kind of like the front end of that. So Monitor will surface that, and then Monitor also provides other functionality. I mean, it provides things like recommendations and all this other kind of stuff. And you can set up your alerts in there and do all that. But again, the heart of it is Log Analytics is the back end. So.
Yeah. Well, the reason I ask is just from a governance standpoint. I mean, I'm always concerned about, hey, if there's 10 different ways to go and create the notifications, yet then I have to go look in 10 different places to find those notifications to make changes or to see, or somebody leaves an organization and changes a role or something, to find out where all that stuff is. What's the best way to manage that? And I would default to the process that has that overview.
Right. And I think that Application Insights is missing the boat on this. I mean, they need that option to alter that and not just send to administrators, but they haven't. I mean, that's just something they haven't implemented. But for any type of alerting in Azure, I go to Monitor first. because that should be the de facto place for anyone who deals with that. If they deal from a security aspect and not just like an event aspect, but a security aspect, you should be using Security Center, which also ties into Monitor, but it's focused all on security and compliance and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Cool stuff. All right. So here's a kind of I thought this is it's more a softball question, but it might have some interesting discussion. Christine says, anyone else here using Teams for therapy sessions and specifically group therapy sessions?
You're familiar with that therapy, right, Christian? You're familiar with therapy.
Of course, I have several therapists, and all of them use Teams. So I was wondering what tips and advice you have. I've been using it and will be attending a feedback group at my workplace, looking for others' experience and expertise. Also, just curious if there are groups, if there are people in this group using it for this purpose. So, one thing I will say is that during the height of the pandemic and the lockdown, at least here in the U.S., I mean, you started to see user group sessions just popping up that had no topic, that the purpose was just for people to connect and have that side of things. And I thought that was very much in alignment with this idea, and what are some best practices there. So one great thing about that is that, well, I have connections around the world and all these different user group invites from around the world, and of all these things that I don't participate in, but I started just dropping in more and more with different user groups. Couple times South Africa, some in the Northeast, down in Australia, New Zealand, dropping in on some of these calls just so I could see and hear friends and make new friends, and just talk about what's going on. And so that was very therapeutic to have those connections. And some of them even specifically, it stated, like, we're not talking about work. It's like, what else is going on? Tell me about family and personal connections and that kind of stuff. And that was, it was great to have those sessions. I don't know if anybody else was doing the same thing and any other best practices that you would share.
The thing that we did was our company tried to implement a lot of this, right? Trying to get people to socialize more. And the problem from a best practices standpoint, don't make them too big. And I mean, because we had a lot of folks that it turns into like talking over each other and can't understand what somebody's trying to talk about and getting off on all kinds of tangents. So you really want to keep them smaller and focused. I think that works out a lot better, especially if you're dealing with I'm assuming from a group therapy, it's going to be a much smaller group, which is a good thing. And the other thing is visuals. It was very important for us to have visual, to be able to see people, to be able to see them in their natural surroundings and their houses, and see their kids running behind them and their dogs and their whatever else. That was very important. I would think from a group therapy aspect too, it's just the same thing. It's the actual, see the person, not just, do audio only type of scenario.
Yeah, I think sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Sharon. I was just going to say, from the Microsoft standpoint, my organization, Microsoft, obviously is Azure, and we've done a lot of work in my organization, in the CXP organization as a whole, to share experiences and do kind of what we call the Culture Club. Is kind of the adaptation of this. And the Culture Club has various different things. We have meditation sessions. We have coffee chat talks. They're just 15-minute meetings. You just drop in.
Did you sing come comedian? No, sorry. Sorry, go ahead, Dan. Sorry.
But we also extended it to other things. We did what we call a Share My Fail, where people brought their failures to the table. I presented on one just a few weeks ago, and where I failed, I screwed up. And how did I learn from it? And then understanding and kind of share that knowledge with people.
What if you have nothing to share? What if you have nothing, absolutely zero to share?
Then you fail, Christian. You don't recognize your failure. You're in denial.
You're in denial.
And the other session we do is we do this thing called Behind the Screens, where people share their hobbies and interests. Again, I did a session last week, which actually, I don't know if you can see this. But I do laser engraving. This is a Marine Corps badge, laser engraved on wood. I got a new laser engraver, which I'm practicing working with, which actually burns the hell out of wood. I realized it's 5 times more powerful than my old one. So, but those are the kind of things we've been doing in all kind of various different scenarios in different contexts to get people connected. And it's almost been 2 years now since we had an offsite in my team. So a lot of lack of face-to-face just makes it hard.
Yeah, really, to add on to that, I was just going to say, I think whenever you do virtual groups, you need to be very specific about when you're meeting, why you're meeting, have topics, have activities planned. Like if you have a handful of people, breakout rooms have been instrumental for a lot of the group sessions that I've participated in, where basically if you have a facilitator, it's no different than in person, facilitation is kind of an art. And I think it's really important to have a facilitator that has a structured time and agenda and activities. And if you're going to use breakout rooms to kind of break people down into smaller groups, do that and facilitate that. And I think if you do those types of things, it's super helpful. I'm sure in the therapy, in that industry, if you're talking about clinical therapy, then it's about governance and rules and policies and what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. But I just think being specific at a facilitation level really helps things to kind of move along, and people don't feel like they're just kind of there to do nothing.
Yeah. Well, and specifically to her question too, from a therapy standpoint, it's one of the reasons why I like. Teams is a great app with that, and so that you can have this if it's a one-on-one or even a small group, and have the tabs and have shared resources all there and the history there of what was shared. And so it's even when we're not in person talking, the therapist or the facilitator of the team discussion can, there's still the chat that's going on until the next session. And so you can even add notes in and, hey, next time we're together, I want to go cover this topic. Or, hey, there's this new tool, like our company uses Headspace. And so you can have a link to the Headspace and the descriptions. Hey, we're going to walk through what different tools that are now, available to the organization, and have that as a tab within that then private, chat there. So, I think Teams is a great way to facilitate those types of discussions, whether it's open or whether it's, one-on-one. All right. Question number 11. Eslam says, what are the limitations for creation of workflow rules and Power Automate for a global admin? There's a quick question. Just what are they? Come on, Sharon, spit it out. Why are you holding back?
It's actually a very complex answer.
Right.
It really is. And the reason why I say that is because Power Automate has all kinds of different permissions that are required depending on what you want to do. So it has different levels. It's not like, if you have permissions to create and automate a flow, that you can do everything inside of the flow. You can't necessarily. And it requires different accounts. It requires an automation account, number one, to actually do everything inside of the flow. So you have to have the permission to create the automation account, all that other kind of stuff. So it's not an easy answer. Well, depending on what you want to create.
Depends.
And so specifically, we're talking about a global admin, the global admin for the creation of workflow of rules. And so
yes, a global admin can do anything, right? The problem is that the problem that I've run into is that a global admin creates it, and then somebody wants to go in and modify the flow, they can't. Or they want to change something in the flow, they can't. Only the global admin can do it. So you really want to avoid having the global. It's kind of like root. If anybody's been raised on Linux or in the Unix world, like I was,
I ate it every day for years.
Oh yeah, so did I.
It's that solid bran, cleans the colon, right. Scrapes it. Yeah, Linux.
And anybody who's raised even on IBMs, okay, QSysOper and root are two things that you just never logged in as. And there's a reason behind that. Global administrator is another thing that you just usually never log in as unless you absolutely need it. That's usually reserved because you basically have root permissions to the entire Azure. And that's, that can cause all kinds of problems.
It's better to have a service account that has all the Power Automate functionality that it needs at a global admin level that is not a global admin.
And I believe that's an actual best practice is to create that service account to do that. Yeah.
And then we just log in with that service account when we're creating the workflows or editing the workflows.
Yeah.
It's got global admin rights to do what it needs for the workflow, but not for the other things.
Correct. The only drawback to that is that account needs Power Automate licensing. So
Yes.
depending on what subscription you have, because Power Automate isn't free. Okay. I mean, some of the things are free, but
And just
not
as a tip, I suggest that if you're going to create a service account like that, I always recommend that you give it the Power Apps Unlimited license,
Yeah.
which, by the way, is now half the price that it used to be, at a low $20 a month. Because by doing that, you can do Power Apps and you can do all of the things in Power Automate you need to do.
I think that was a pretty good answer, Christian.
All right.
Cool.
Question number 12. I think that's pronounced. Is that Kaylee? That's my guess.
Kill the yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I have a question about assigning tasks in the web version of Outlook in Office 365. I see you can create a task, but you can't see who it is assigned to.
I know the answer to this one.
Okay.
So, this requires a little storytelling. No. So Outlook on the web and going forward, all of the versions of Outlook are switching to use To Do as their consolidated task management. So you used to have a separate task entity inside of Outlook that kind of coordinated task management. You don't have that anymore, and that's reflected now in the web, but it will be reflected everywhere eventually. What happens is when you click on that task button, you're actually being directed to do kind of in a modified version. So the tasks that are created in the task section of Outlook are only tasks for you. Whereas when you click on To Do, you can open it up and you can create lists in To Do to use, and you can then share and assign those tasks. And if you do it that way, you can see what the task is, who it's assigned to, who's shared with that list. In addition, you can actually set up things like recurring tasks and all of the fun things you used to do in Outlook, but you just have to do them in a separate new list in To Do. And I like the To Do app on my computer because then I can see it. You can see it on your phone. It really it integrates well across the board. But I use the To Do app on my computer because it pulls all of those tasks into one place. In addition, it also pulls them into Teams under the Tasks app, which I'm going to be doing a session on at Comsverse in September. So yes, it's changing.
I added a couple links to that effect in the chat.
Thank you so much.
Yep, I will. For those that are looking for that, by the way, so anything that we have, if we have links to share, so I will be doing a summary blog post out on buckleyplanet.com. You can find it there with any of the links. And then if there are any, of course, follow-up blog posts like Sharon's going to do on a previous question, then I'll also provide a link to that other blog post there as well. I'm sure she'll get on that right away as well. So. Yeah, that's a great. I know that it's evolving. The thing I'm waiting for is that To Do integration through tasks in OneNote. In OneNote, because that's the last, refuge of hidden tasks that get forgotten, things that you flag there. And I know that there are different integrations across. You can push that over into, Outlook notifications. But it's not a clean integration. I just want it to open up the To Do just like it does now within Outlook for the web, and just have that modified panel of tasks that are created as you flag them within your notes, and it just automatically pops up and then shows up in a related list in To Do. That's what I'm waiting for. There is a I don't know what the roadmap is long term, the timing of it is. But again, it's part of that long-term tasks in Microsoft 365 roadmap, and will eventually be that way. Cool. All right. Let's see. Question number 13. Lucky 13. Munmun. Better way to pronounce that? I don't know. I've deleted a site in SharePoint 2016. But still my ULS log is capturing its entry. Any idea why it is looking for a deleted site?
Probably because there's a connection from one site to another, or an app to the site. that's still operating. Need to know more about the ULS log entries to understand what it's trying to achieve, though.
Yeah.
Without the data from the log, is anything could be happening.
Okay.
Recommend it. I don't know what else to say. I mean,
Yeah.
what is the event? I mean, ULS logs are pretty comprehensive. Put it in verbose mode, filter down to the event ID or filter down to the correlation ID.
Well,
that's pretty much it.
So if it's looking for a deleted site, I mean, like, I don't know if the ULS logs are refreshed there. I mean, one, if it's deleted, if it was just newly deleted, is it still, in the system? Is it still, waiting to be properly, removed from the system, so the reference is still relevant there because it's still alive? If you were to go back in and restore it within 10 days, for example, so there's going to be history until it's entirely removed from the system.
Yeah, and it depends on, like you say, when you say it's looking for a deleted site, what's looking, what is it trying to achieve? Because obviously all sites, as you know, all sites will get periodic time jobs. They'll go do user profile sync refreshes, all that kind of stuff. There's a whole bunch of jobs that do that. So if we can narrow it down to the actual activity that's trying to take place against that site, or what call is being made to that site, then we can do a much better job of narrowing in and understanding what the problem is, if there's indeed even a problem. Likelihood is if it's a timer job and the site's marked as is deleted in the change log, the timer jobs will ignore it and won't do anything with it except the deletion timer job, which actually deletes the site itself. If it's a call, maybe there's a workflow somewhere that's related to that site. Maybe there's something like a content distributor application, .sp document web, that kind of thing, that's trying to move content to that site. There's a whole bunch of reasons why there could be a reference to a site that's been deleted, and understanding what's actually trying to happen, what action is trying to take place, will help us narrow in that, help them solve the problem in a better way than just phishing.
All right. Question number 14. Martin says, hi all, I'm wondering if there is a way to get a daily or weekly summary of my meeting participations with joining and leaving time, maybe with PowerShell or Power Apps. I need to book my working hours quite exactly, and it's time consuming to go through all the meeting charts where at the least the start and end time is visible, one by one, and Teams meetings from external companies do not even contain this info. The chat is not available anymore after the meeting ended. So is there a way to go in for an individual and get a daily or weekly summary of every meeting that they've participated in and their start and stop times?
I mean, every meeting has a downloaded report, but I know I've done a Power BI report based on Outlook, but you would still have to manually update the times. I think it'd be a cool thing, though. What a great idea for a product.
That would be a cool thing, like specifically for like time card systems. I'm not familiar if there are any third-party apps that do this today. Please comment, let us know.
I'm writing this down.
Yeah, because that would be a cool feature to have. If I could go and get a daily summary of, hey Christian, here were the 9 Teams meetings that you participated in, your join time and your leave time and number of minutes that equals. So I get that summary, maybe with the subject, the topic of each of those meetings, just at a very high level. That would be an interesting thing. This would be a great question for like John and Ed over at Tygraph to see if it's captured. And see if they've come across that scenario. I can't believe that this would be a new question that we've not ever been asked.
It is in the Teams admin user activity report. That's what I was looking to see if it's actually
Okay.
here, and it is. There's a user activity report that essentially for every user,
Is that per meeting or is that per user over the course of the day? Or
it tells you the total, and it tells you every single meeting that you've participated in and the duration.
so you can look at it from the user level of all of the meetings, not meeting by meeting.
I think you could do both.
Well, I mean, one thing, I mean, we know the data is captured.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it is captured. So therefore, yeah, I mean, there would probably be a way to do it. I don't know the easy way to do it, but it is actually getting tracked inside of the usage report for Teams admin. So surely that could be surfaced in a Power BI report or something easy.
Yeah, and so if it's available there, then it should be available via the API, and to be able to go in and
Or the graph, yeah.
build that through the Graph API. Yep.
Yep, there it is.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Now, Martin, you just need to go build it. So, yeah. We admire that problem. Okay, number 15, Thorsten. We would like to contact all members of one channel via email. Is that possible, and how? Channel, email.
You know the answer to this. You just right-click on the channel and get email link. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I know the answer. Thorsten didn't know the answer to that, but yes. So it's right there natively within the UI to do that.
Yeah, you just click the dot, not right click, sorry. You click on the channel, click the little dot, and there's a get link to channel, and it will give you the link that you can, there's an email address and a link.
If that is enabled, if that is allowed by the admin. So if you're not seeing it, it may not be allowed for your team or for your org. And so talk to your team's admin or your global admin.
The other option is I guess it says via email. The other option is to, in the Teams chat, to simply @mention the team or the channel, and you can also do that as well.
Yeah, depending on the type of communication. Then, of course, if you're trying to reach them, why send an email? Just do an announcement right within that channel, depending on what you're trying to do.
If they're subscribed to emails that mention them, then they will also get an email as well.
Yes. Just taking a note there. All right. Question number 16, Bradley. I'm currently in the run of migrating all my data on Windows Server 2019 standard from HDD to SSD storage. How much of a difference will it make in terms of hosting websites on IIS, which has their asset files located on the SSD drives?
That's a very open-ended question.
It depends on
assets,
the bandwidth.
Yeah. I mean, you've got to think about websites and how they operate, and a number of things that come into play here. You know, if you say, start from the moment a first user hits a website, there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes in the background. Obviously, retrieving the assets originally from the SSD is going to be faster than a regular, spinning platter hard drive. So there's speed gains there in both in terms of latency and bandwidth. Assuming the machines can operate that, let's assume it's a virtual machine and it's got the right buses and the right connectivity to the device. That's kind of a secondary point, but then consider how the website operates. Most websites that are well written or are based on the right platform will have significant caching structure behind them. So once the data is retrieved from the asset, you rarely would have to or once the asset's retrieved from the disk, you'd rarely have to go back and get it again. It should be in a cache somewhere, hopefully. So there's a lot of things that initial hit will probably be faster. Likelihood is there'll be some performance gains elsewhere. Overall, going SSD versus spinning disk is a good move generally for improving bandwidth and latency, but the actual the determination of how much will it improve is very kind of based on user experience and testing.
Okay. Great answer. Yep. Okay, question number 17. We got 4 minutes here. I think we can knock out a couple more. Number 17, Shauna says, I still do not see the webinar option in my Teams. It is not blocked by the organization. Any idea why?
Christian, I feel like we need a captain. There used to be this show called Captain Obvious or whatever, or thank you, Doctor. Was it Dr. Science? Thank you, Dr. Science, where he gave obvious answers to questions. And I feel like this is one of those. It's because it's not there yet.
Yeah.
So that's
Wait,
where I highly recommend that you sit down, pen a letter on good old-fashioned paper to your state senator, and something, darn it, will be done about it. There should be legislation. Yeah, it's not available yet.
I mean, I feel like if it's not there, if once the rollout window is completely done, if it's still not there, maybe open a ticket to Microsoft. But
yeah, talk to us in 3 months and let us know if this is still an issue. Thank you. Question number 18. Norris says, needing help. I did not delete my Microsoft team, and I'm trying to restore it. So someone else did. That's the interpretation there. So I cut and paste these questions, folks. So the restore button doesn't allow me to. Is there any way I can get my group back and know who deleted it? I only know it was at 1:07 a.m. Please help. So at 1:07 a.m., somebody went in and deleted Norris's team.
The audit logs will tell her who, if she has access to them.
Mm-hmm.
If she doesn't, presumably she can raise a request for her internal support organization to get that data.
So Neil, where are you from? You're from originally what part of the UK?
From Manchester, God's own country.
In Manchester, do you have a lot of women named Norris? I just was wondering.
No.
I just
Many apologies.
just not.
Apologies to Norris.
I was surprised that you went there right away. I'm like, okay, just making sure. Okay,
I misheard. I apologize.
That's okay. Okay, yeah. So so the audit log would be the first place to go in and see who deleted what. I mean, that's interesting too. Like, has the restore button, but it's not restoring. Why would that be the case?
Maybe they're not an owner. Maybe it's been deleted, and
so
it needs to be.
That was my thought too.
Microsoft.
Because they would not see the option to restore it if they didn't have permissions for restore. Correct. My first thought was that it got fully deleted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's my guess. My guess is it got deleted and then it got fully deleted, and they would likely have to open a support ticket with Microsoft to restore it. And even then, there's a window for that.
Yep. There's a window. There's a caveat. And just block out a couple vacation days to be on the phone with Microsoft support.
Yes, maybe even a week.
Yeah.
I'm gonna mute myself now.
Yeah. Well, that's hey guys, we're at time. Really appreciate everybody for participating, and my device is talking to me over in the window there. But really appreciate everyone for joining. And again, thank you for all those that watch the recording or are watching on the live stream on Facebook or out on YouTube. Of course, we'll be back next month. We'll publish out the date. So I would highly recommend that you subscribe out on YouTube to just go search for Collab Talk on YouTube and get the notifications there. There's plenty of other interviews that are out there. I will be doing a full summary blog post on buckleyplanet.com where it will have embedded the recording and every question, so every message center update that was provided and every question that we covered and any links that we shared with each other here during the discussion will be a part of that as well. And with that, just follow the hashtag of M365AMA and we'll be back next month.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks a lot, everybody. And I guess get back to our normal work day, whatever we were doing before, if we were doing things before. Yeah, let's go do those things. So we'll see everybody later.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.